Year 5 homework 5 walk through. Okay, so the spelling section here. Question 1. Persuade is spelled wrong, it should be persuade. Question 2. Ancient is spelled wrong, it should be spelled like this. For this one, competition is spelled like this. Lightning is spelled with a GH. Lightning. There we go, lightning. Vehicle, so that should have an I here. And there we go. For this one, now it's accommodate. It's spelled wrong, so that should be 2 C's. They lived in a friendly, so this is community, is spelled like this. You always exaggerate, so these frequently, spelled like that. Immediately is spelled like that. Okay, question 11. Choose the sentence with the correct use of capital letters. So the start of the sentence has to be capitalized. Your aunt has to be capitalized because it's a name here, Aunt Kate, right? So it's like saying Professor Kate. Professor would have to be capitalized. So both of these have to be capitalized here. London and Paris are both also capitalized because they're proper nouns and they're places. So option B is our answer here. Question 12. So I ran until I thought I would collapse. So we just have to capitalize all the I's here, which looks like is option A. So this is incorrect because it has C capitalized. Question 13. So German, French, obviously start sentences as well, and also Japan have to be capitalized. So that's option B. Question 14. So Julius Caesar is a name, should be capitalized. It's also a play, so should be capitalized. And Shakespeare should be capitalized as a name, so option C. Question 15. Everybody knows that this is a place. This should be all capitalized. Each start of the, so R, D and J, and then also Brazil should be capitalized, and the start of the sentence should be capitalized, which is option C. Okay, now we're on to the comprehension. Question 16. As used in paragraph 2, the word marvel means all of the following except. So that means which one of these does marvel not mean? So marvel actually means to be amazed, surprised, or even curious, right? If you look at the passage here, they see a magnificent view and they marvel. So it's all of those emotions. It doesn't mean to feel anxious. Feeling anxious is a very different feeling. So that's going to be our answer here, option D. Marvel means all of the following except to feel anxious. So question 17, based on the information in the passage, what is most likely the reason why the sun's path is called ecliptic? So this isn't directly mentioned in the passage. An eclipse is sort of like an oval shape. So if we look at our options here, the sun's path is outstanding as an eclipse. Eclipses happen when the moon crosses the sun's path. Eclipses are vast, and the path of the sun is also vast. Sun only moves when there is an eclipse. So that is not true. The sun is always moving. The eclipses are vast and the sun is also vast. That is an incorrect use of logic. There's no real evidence here to say that eclipses are vast, and that's sort of why they're calling the sun ecliptic, right? And the sun's path is as outstanding as an eclipse. That's trying to say that the sun is outstanding, or like really great, and as outstanding as an eclipse. So I mean, if we look at where it is in the passage anyway, so the second condition for a solar eclipse, solar eclipses only happen when the moon is in line with the ecliptic. The path of the sun seems to take each year. So it says, it calls basically, it says when the moon is in line with the ecliptic, And ecliptic is basically another word for the path the sun seems to take each year. Now, what we can infer from this is because solar eclipses only happen when the moon is in line ecliptic, or with that path, the path ecliptic, because that's sort of like the defining factor of that sun path. So option B is going to be the answer there. You can also just get there from process of elimination, because option A doesn't really make any sense. The sun's path being outstanding or astounding is never mentioned in the passage, right? Okay, question 18, which of the following questions is not answered in the passage? So what does a solar eclipse look like? Well, if we look up here, it does say what a solar eclipse looks like. So it's not that. What is the difference between a partial eclipse and a total eclipse? That is mentioned in the passage. What conditions must occur for the solar eclipse to happen? Again, it just explained that the moon's line has to pass the sun's line. So we're left with option D. It doesn't actually tell us when the next solar eclipse is going to happen, because it can't really do that, because we don't know. We could be reading this at any time, right? Okay, what happens when only the lighter outer shadow of the moon touches Earth? It says right here that a partial solar eclipse happens when the lighter outer shadow reaches the Earth. So option C is our correct answer. Question 20. What is the author's purpose in writing this passage? So the author isn't trying to persuade us of anything. He's not trying to convince us of everything. He's giving us a lot of information, actually. Again, he's not trying to convince us. That's the same meaning as persuade. And I wouldn't say he's entertaining us, because he's giving us a lot of information. He's educating us, right? So what is his primary purpose? It's probably to inform us about the eclipse, right? He gives us lots of information. He explains how it occurs, what it looks like, etc. So that is the answer to that question. Okay, now we're on to the second comprehension, Latin as a second language. Okay, many people believe that it is beneficial to learn a second language. Knowing two languages makes it easier to travel to foreign countries, communicate with people from other cultures, and conduct international business. Okay, I'm going to read the rest of this passage, and then I'm going to come back and explain the answers. So question 21, if we look at the end of this paragraph, he says, if you choose to study a language that no one speaks anymore, which is Latin, many of the practical advantages of learning a second language are erased, so you should think carefully about which language you choose. So the author apparently does believe that Latin is less useful than other spoken languages because no one speaks it anymore. So the answer here would be B. Question 22. Beneficial basically means something that is helpful, useful, or something that benefits you, right? So option C would be the best answer there. Advantageous, helpful, or valuable. You can always look at the passage here to try and fit in one of these words as well. People believe that is advantageous to learn a second language. That makes sense, right? And this would fit much better. Then, for example, people believe that it's intelligent to learn a second language, right? So option C is the best answer here. Question 23. Based on the information in the passage, it can be understood that a dead language is a language that is what? So we have got dead language mentioned somewhere up here. So some people choose to learn Latin, which is a dead language. It has not been spoken for over 1,000 years, right? And he also obviously mentions that no one speaks it anymore. I think so. What you can infer from this is that a dead language is a language that no one speaks anymore, right? So that would be option B here. Now, some of you might have chosen A because you might think a dead language is a language that's over 1,000 years old, because it says that here. But it doesn't actually say Latin is over 1,000 years old. It could be much older. All it's mentioning here, the primary reason of this sentence is to talk about the fact that it hasn't been spoken for over 1,000 years. So it not being spoken anymore is the main thing here, option B, right? Question 24, someone who knows Latin will likely be able to do what? So he does say that to learn it, It requires concentration and logical thinking, and also it helps you speak other languages like Italian and Spanish. Helps you learn them, right? So someone who learns who knows Latin is probably able to think logically and also learn Spanish easier. Now, communicate with foreigners is unlikely because it says no one speaks it anymore, right? So it would be option I and II only. According to the author, Latin can be helpful for English speakers because it is the basis for all modern languages, Romance languages, a way to conduct international business. So we can cancel this one out. It says at the start that you can conduct international business if you learn a language that other people speak, right? Not Latin. And taught in schools in many different countries. That's not particularly any reason why it's useful. He does mention that it's taught in schools, but he doesn't particularly think there's any need to do that. A way to help build their vocabulary. Again, no real... Actually, let's have a look at that. Right, so it does say here, English speakers build their vocabulary since many English words can be derived from Latin. So actually, he says that is one of the reasons why it might be useful for an English speaker specifically to learn Latin. Now, it does say it's the basis of all modern Romance languages, but it doesn't say that specifically an English speaker might find that useful. Not every English speaker is trying to learn Romance languages. So option D is going to be the best option here. Question 26. As used in paragraph 2, something that is derived must be what? Okay, so if we look at paragraph 2, here's the word derived. It says English words are derived from Latin. So initially, if you try and think about what that might mean, you should be able to gauge the idea that it probably means like English words come from Latin, or they have sort of evolved from Latin, and you should maybe know that from your own knowledge as well. So come before, not quite, come from is probably the best option there. Be the same or replace something else? No, not particularly. Now you can try those in the place of that word derived, and you should find that option B is the best suited there. Okay, question 27. The main purpose of this passage is to educate the readers about advantages and disadvantages of learning a second language. Explain that although learning Latin has its advantages, it is a less useful choice. Now, option A we can already cancel out. Here, the passage isn't particularly about second languages, it's mainly about Latin, right? C, highlight the reasons why some people think learning Latin is a good idea. It does do that, but only for like one sentence out of the entire passage. And option D, argue against the continuation of teaching Latin in schools around the world. He doesn't argue at all actually for this. He does mention some of the arguments that people may give, but he's not particularly arguing for this. Not the author isn't, right? So, explain although learning Latin has its advantages, it is a less useful choice. I'm going to go with this option, and I'll explain why. Option B, if you look at the conclusion, this will always usually have the purpose of the passage. The conclusion and introduction usually are the best places to look for the purpose of a passage. So he's concluded here that if you choose to study a language, Latin could be useful, but you want to think carefully. You might want to choose a different language that might actually be a bit more useful for you. Now, option B encapsulates that perfectly. So I'd say that's the main purpose of the passage, and that is the correct answer. Okay, choose the best word. So I've put in the answers here, and I'm just going to explain each of the words and the reason why it fits there best. So, long time ago, a woodcutter lived with his wife in a small cottage not too far from the great forest. So this obviously has to be a noun here. Forest fits in the best there. If we skip ahead, it says, but though he was so small, he was far something than the other brothers. So again, cleverer works best here. It has to be an adjective here. It happened to be just at this time there was a famine in the land. This would have to be a noun, and famine works great here because it's talking about something that's happening in the land, right? Happening in that area. One night, after the boys had gone to bed, the husband sighing deeply, so that's very obvious. I think if you're doing something deeply, sighing is probably the best word to fit there. We cannot feed our children any longer, and to see them starve before our eyes is more than I can bear. So, looking at the context of the famine, starve works best here. His wife wept bitterly at the thought of leaving their children. This has to be, and bitterly works amazingly here. And then, so she consented to her husband's plan. So that means she agreed to her husband's plan. Okay, then slipping quietly out of bed. So again, adverb right there, that needs to be put there. And then, but linger behind. Okay, so Tom Thumb did not say a word to his brothers of what he had overheard, but linger behind. Lingering behind, that means basically staying behind. He dropped the pebbles from his pocket one by one as they walked. Okay, and then we got to wait while they went a little further to cut wood. So that means basically went a little further, and you would be left with this as your only option left. But that is this passage done. Okay, choose the best word now. Change the verbs in brackets. So here we need to make all of these verbs into past tense. So felt is the past tense here. Did is the past tense here. Ate is the past tense here. Flew, again flew. It was going to be wrote, swam, shook, rang, tall, and sang. These are all the past tense words here. Question 49. The pups have meat for dinner, but the cat has. So have is when you have multiple, plural, and has is for singular. So that's going to be option B. We have met, it looks like we have to meet. So we have to meet. It's going to be past tense, right? Not past tense, sorry, future tense. The lady who has the books. Question 51. A whale has lungs, but a fish has gills, but singular. Question 52. The girls have measles, because that's plural, and the boys have mumps, both plural. Option A. Question 53. The soldiers have guns, again plural, and the captains have, that's option C. Okay, choose the best word, I or me. So she gave me a sweet, and I gave her an orange. So me is the object of the sentence, and I is the subject of the sentence. Let you and me go to the cinema tonight. Okay, so I believe you here is the subject, so me is the object of the word let, so that's going to have to be here, me. Okay, question 56. He pushed me and I stumbled. Question 57. Mary and I. So whenever you say someone's name, you have to say and I, or my mother and I, etc., right? Instead of saying me and Mary. So it's correct to say Mary and I, right? Question 58. Mother divided the sweets between Mira and me. Because, again, is the object of between. So that's going to be the option here. Question 59. Hala is older than me, but I am stronger than her. So that's going to be option A. Me is the object of older. Question 60. The ball bounced between Tim and me, but I caught it. So me is the object of Tim here, and then I is the subject. Okay. Question 61. We're on to maths. Alright, let's go through the decimals questions now. So question 61. Write these decimals in order, smallest first. So the smallest decimal, what you have to do is compare the first digit on all of these, so they're all the same. And then you can compare the second digit. So we've got 0 here, this one's 3, 4 and 3. So 0 is the smallest here. So this one is actually the smallest number overall. So it should start with this one. So it should be A or C. Now what was actually next smallest? Well, 4 was the biggest, so that should be at the end, which is why it can't be A. So you're actually left with C. And with these ones, if you look at the middle numbers, what you have to do with for example 3.3, all numbers have an infinite number of zeros behind their decimal point. So this is actually 3.3000, and if you compare, let's say, the third digit to the third digit here, right, this is a 3, this is a 0, so this is smaller, which is why this is right here, this is here, and this is here. Hopefully that makes sense. Again, when I'm talking about digits, this is the first digit, second digit, third digit, fourth digit, right, so these are backfilled. Okay, that's option C. So question 62, the quick cafe menu is shown on the right. Mrs. White buys a bacon roll and a tea from the quick cafe. How much does she spend? So bacon roll is £1.45, tea is 75p. So 75p is another way of saying 0.75 pounds and £1.45. So if you line up the decimals, you can do addition very easily. So that's 10, you carry the 1, and that's 12, carry the 1, and that's 2. And then all you have to do is bring the decimal point down, and there you go, your answer is £2.20. So question 63 now. Mr. Brown stopped for a quick snack at the quick cafe and spent exactly £3.55. Which items did he buy? Circle the answer. So £3.55 here is going to have to be a combination of some of these, right? We're going to have to basically trial and error. We have to try them one by one. So if we try, let's say, £1.25 and also 75p, that gives us £2. And how much did he spend? £3.55. So from there's nothing that we can add on to it that will give us £3.55. So it has to be, it can't be those two. So tea is probably not it. Let's try it maybe for breakfast and a tea. So if we add those two together, what we should get is £1.60, I believe. Sorry, £2.60. And then from there, if we add 80p, that'll give us £3.45. So it's close, but it's not there. So you can see this can take a while. So let's try again. Let's try another one. If we add £1.45 to £1.25, that gives us £2.07. Then if we add 85p to that, that gives us £3.55. So we added these two and this one, so bacon roll, toast and jam, and also a coffee. He gets all three of these, it costs him £3.55. So it was bacon roll, toast and jam, and coffee, so option D is the answer there. Alright, question 60. By how much is 7.2 greater than 0.9? So how much bigger is it basically? What you have to do here is minus these two, because you're looking for the difference between them, and what that should give you is 6.3. Question 65. Write 0.84 as a common fraction in its lowest terms. So 0.84, another way to say that is 84%, or 84 over 100. So anything as a percent is just over 100, right? So this is actually our fraction. That's what we get from 0.84. So that's how you can convert any decimal to a fraction. Another way to think about it is any number is always over 1, so it's actually 0.84 over 1. Then if you times the top and the bottom by 100, you should get 84 over 100. Now, all we have to do here is simplify it. So if we divide the top and the bottom by 2, I believe we should get 42 over 50. And then if we do that again, divide the top and the bottom by 2, we'll get 21 over 25, which is option C. Okay, question 66. Farah posts 4 parcels weighing 24.5 kilograms and 16.2 kilograms, 6.25 and 5.4. So we have to add these all together. Remember, when you're adding, you have to line up the decimal points. So you can see here 6.25 is. So these we have to backfill with zeros. So if you put this now and we add it like this, 0 plus 5 is just 5. 5 plus 2 plus 2 plus 4 is 15. Carry the 1. And here we have 22. And then here we have 5. So we bring the decimal point down, 5. Sorry, I made a mistake on this addition. This is actually 13, not 15. So 52.35 is our answer here. Okay, question 67. Julie bought a washing machine for £490, 490.90, vacuum cleaner for this and this. So again, it's just addition. So you line up the decimals as usual, and then you add it up like this, always making sure you carry. And I'm not going to bore you with showing you how to do addition, because you should know that by this point. What you should get is 673.60. Remember to line up the decimals when you're doing that. So these ones, exact same thing, right? So you do 35.791 and then you do 5.6. You line up the decimals, you backfill with zeros, and this is also obviously a 0. But if you do the addition here, what you should get is 41.391, and that will be your answer for this one, for question 69. You can multiply like this. Actually, I'm not sure if you can. I would do it like this, right? You just multiply these two first, you get your answer, and then you multiply the result by 0.2. So if we do this, now with multiplication, you have to count how many numbers are behind the decimal point. So there's 2 numbers behind the decimal point in total. And then we do the multiplication as normal, so 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 0 is 0. Put a 0 here, and then we move on to the next one. 0 times 2 is 0, and then 0. And then if we add these, we get 4 as our answer. And now it says there's 2 numbers behind the decimal point. That means we have to have 2 numbers behind the answer decimal, right? So you got 1, 2. So basically I've filled it in with a 0. So our answer here is 0.04. So that was 0.2 times 0.2. That's 0.04 as our answer. And now there's still this one that we haven't done yet. So what I'll do there is do that, and then you times it by what we just got down here. Now with multiplication, you don't really have to line up the decimal points. It's not really a big deal. You do have to count how many there are. So there's 3 numbers behind the decimal point this time. So if we do this, we get 8, and the rest is just going to be zeros. So what your answer down here will be 8, and there are going to be 3 numbers behind the decimal point. That means we have to do 1, 2,
So there you go, you can see there's 3 numbers behind this decimal point now, and our answer here is 0.008, and that is the answer to question 69. Okay, and then question 70, take 632 away from 4.1. So how you do this one is similar to addition. You have to line up the decimal points and then do your subtraction. I think I've set that up the wrong way. It should be like this. So with the zeros, they're too small, so they have to borrow. So this can't borrow from here. This can borrow from here. So let's borrow. Turn this into a 0. This turns into a 10. Now this can get borrowed. So this turns into a 10, that turns into a 9. Hopefully that makes sense. Now we've got 10 minus 2, which is 8. 9 minus 3 is 6. Now 0 minus 6 obviously doesn't work, so we have to borrow again, turn this into a 3. Take the 1 from the 3 and make this into 10. And then 10 minus 6 is 4. Bring the decimal point down, and 3 minus 2 is 1. So your answer here should be 1.468 for question 70. Okay, for question 71, so timesing by 100,000, etc. With these ones, if you times by 100 or anything, there's like in the 10 times table, you just count how many zeros there are. So there's 2 here, and then you move this 1, 2. So our answer here is going to be 16945.4. So the decimal point is here now. With this one, there's 3 here, so you do 1, 2, 3. So it should actually just be 62.0. This one divided by 10, so we move the decimal point 1 place to the left. So it should be 0.046. So with division, you move it to the left. With multiplication, you move it to the right. Hopefully that makes sense. And with 1000, decimal point is actually here. You can't see it, it's imaginary, but it's there. You move it 3 places to the left. 1, 2, 3. So 3.205. Okay, question 75. How much would it cost for 4 children to go swimming? So here are the swimming prices you got here. Basically, you're going to have to times this by 4. So you should know how to do multiplication at this point. There are 2 numbers behind the decimal point. If we do this, we'll get 20. 4 times 9 is 36. Add it to the 2 is 38. And 4 times 1 is 4. So 2 numbers behind the decimal point. So we got 1, 2. So it should be 4.8 as our answer here. Question, what was that, 75. My mistake, I didn't carry the 3 here. So we did this, 36, and then we have to carry the 3 here. So 4 times 1 is 4, and then add the 3. That gives us 7, so it should be 7.8 here. Sorry about that. So £7.80. So again, if you do the multiplication, normally here you will get your answer. Just make sure you do the carrying, and make sure you count the number of decimal points numbers that you have behind the decimal point. Question 76. How much would it cost for 5 adults to go swimming? So same idea here. You just do £2.30 times 5, because there's 5 adults. So if we do this again, 5 times 0 is 0, 5 times 3 is 15, carry the 1, and 5 times 2 is 10, add the 1, gives us 11. Now there's 2 numbers behind the decimal point, so we do 1, 2, £11.50 is our answer. Question 77. On Tuesday, 50 adults and 80 children went swimming. How much money did they make? So same idea here. What you have to do is you set up the multiplication. So it's 50 adults and how many was it? 80 children. So you finish these multiplications. I'm just gonna quickly do these. That gives us 115, and now you should get something like this. You'll probably get your answers like this once you do your multiplication, and from there you just have to add these together, because this is how much money they made from the adults and this is how much money they made from the children. So you add them together, you should get £271. Okay, question 78. it's saying this times this is equal to this, so what is this times this? Now you could just work it out normally, but if you want to do it quickly, use the information that they gave you here. So you can see the numbers here are actually the same, but the decimal points are in the different places, right? So if you do 3.24 times 52, it's 168 point something. Now what they've done is they've times this one by 10 to get 32.4, and they divided this one by 10 to get 5.2. Now if you think about times something by 10 and also divide something by 10, you're going to actually get the same number, right? So it will actually end up being 168.48 as well. Now if you think about, let's say they only times this by 10 and they left the 52 as normal, so it would have been 32.4 times 52. The answer would have just been times by 10. It would have just ended up being 1684.8. But because they times the left number by 10 and divided the right number by 10, you end up getting exact same answer. Okay, question 79. It takes Shazni 2.5 minutes to read a page. How many minutes will it take her to read a book? It's 90 pages long. So again, you just have to do 2.5 times 90 here. I'll give you 225 minutes basically. And you will probably get 0.0, but it's the same answer. Okay, multiply 0.06 by 35. Again, same thing. If you do your multiplication, make sure you have your numbers here. There's two numbers behind the decimal point, right? So you do your multiplication, and what you'll get is, I believe it will be 210, and then there's two numbers behind the decimal point, which should give you 2.10 as your answer. Now if you're not getting this answer, that means you're doing some mistake on this multiplication, so make sure you try it again. 5 times 6, 5 times 0, etc. Make sure you add the 0 under here as well when you're moving on. But your answer should be 2.1 for this. Question 81. Find the difference between 0.3 and 0.03. So whenever it says difference, you just have to subtract. Now you can subtract it like this, or you can just count upwards from 0.03. So if you think about how many times you have to count up to get from 0.03 to 1, or 0.07. If you add these two, you get 1, right? So that gets you to 1. And then how much from 1? Actually, that's too much. Oh, so that gets you to 0.1, sorry. Right? So you already counted up. And then how much from 0.1 to 0.3? Well, it's just 0.2, right? So now you can just add these together, and what you'll get is 0.27. So you could do that, or you could just subtract it like this and do just normal subtraction. You'll get the same thing, but I think it might be a bit quicker if you just count upwards. Think about how do you get to 0.1 from this number, and then how do you get to 0.3 from that number. Okay, question 82. Write 600 milliliters as a decimal of 1 liter. So 1 liter is 1,000, so 600 milliliters over 1,000. Now you should remember that you can cancel out zeros if they're on top of each other, so what you actually get is 6 over 10. Now that's not in any of the options, so if you actually simplify this, you divide the top by 3, you'll get 2. If you divide the bottom by if you divide the top by 2, you'll get 3. Divide the bottom by 2, you'll get 5, so you get 3 over 5 as your answer, which is option A. Question 83. What must be added to 37.4 to equal 50? So that's basically again saying what's the difference between these two. So if you do 50 minus 37.4, what you should get is, if you add 0.6 to this, and then it will be basically 12, so it would be 12.6. Question 84. People pay to visit a garden. So 145 people pay, 39 of them are under 16, so 39 of them have to pay this rate, the rest of them have to pay the other rate. So if we do 39 times 2.25, use the methods that you used earlier with a log multiplication, what you'll get is 87.75. That's how much the under 16s had to pay. Now we have to figure out how many were left, so how many of these actually had to pay the over 16 fare. So if you do 39 minus 145, you will realise there's 106 people who have to pay this fare. So all you have to do is times 106 by £3.60, and that will give you £381.6. And now you've got people who have paid the over 16 fare and people who have paid the under 16 fare. So if you add these two together, you get £469.35 paid in total. So that's going to be your answer right there. If you got stuck because that was too fast, try and rewatch that section. Question 85. So a pack of 10 pens cost £2.70. A box of pens costs 100 packs. So a box of pen contains 100 packs. Mr. Chapman buys 10 boxes of pens. How much does this cost? So I'm assuming the box of pen is the same price, meaning it would be £27 because it contains, a pack of pens contains a pack, so a pack costs £2.70 and a box has 100 packs. So if it has 100 packs, it's going to actually cost £270. If you times this by 100, you get £270, and he buys 10 boxes, so if you have to times that by 10, you'll get 2,700 as your answer. So £2,700 is your answer. Okay, NVR analogy now. So with these ones you just have to figure out how do we get from the left shape to the right shape, and then apply that same principle to the next one. So what seems to have happened from here to here is this is rotated 90 degrees. You can see it's rotated 90 degrees, I believe that is clockwise, anti-clockwise, sorry. And then a second piece is added which has got swapped colours. So if we rotate this one clockwise, we should have some sort of like half circle like this. So this is on the wrong one, this is wrong, this is wrong. So it's basically either like this or like this, and then what happens is you add a second shape opposite it that has different colours, like the opposing colours. So it shouldn't be A because the colours are the same on the right and the left. It should be B, option B. Question 87. So this is just the same shape, and then you create another one and you make it horizontal. So if you think about this one, it should have a diamond which is like this, and it is overlapping, so it shouldn't be A. This has only got one shape, and these ones aren't overlapping, right? So you can see these should have overlapping, so it should be option C. Question 88. So this one, the small circle turns into a dashed circle. So let's look for a dashed pentagon. So it can only be any of A or D, and a bigger circle comes in that is a straight line. So it shouldn't be D because it has a dashed bigger shape, right? So it should be A. Question 89. So all that changes from here left to right is it just rotates 90 degrees clockwise. So if we rotate this one 90 degrees clockwise, we should actually have something, a pattern like this. So if you can imagine it, you can even try and turn your page a bit to the right. We should have the square on the top right, square on the bottom left. Now D is the only option that matches that. Question 90. So this one, it's reflected, and then also the lining swaps, so the straight line goes to the inside and the dashed line goes to the outside. So this should be reflected, can't be A or D, and the straight line should be on the inside and the dashed line should be on the outside. So option B is the only one that matches that. Question 91. So this one, to me it looks like it is rotated 90 degrees. This shape, you can see this is turned into that. So let's rotate this 90 degrees. That is, I believe, anti-clockwise. So that should actually give us... it's not 90 degrees, I think it's 45 degrees if I'm looking at that closely. So if we rotate this 45 degrees, we should have triangles that are like pointing downwards this way. So shouldn't be any of these. Now a second shape is added above it to the top right, and it's a black shape. Same version of that shape, so it should actually be like this. This one isn't black, so we're left with option E. Question 92. So this one is rotated 90 degrees again. Could be anti-clockwise or clockwise, both the same. So, and then what happens after that is the outside of this circle becomes thick. So this one outside should become thick, meaning it can't be any of these. And then this big black shape is basically made a bit smaller so that it fits inside, meaning it should be a bit like A. So option A is going to be the correct answer for that. Question 93. Triangle. Now you can see the shape inside. This has got 3 and then this has got 6. So I'm assuming it's going to double. So we should go from 4 to 8. And then everything else is the same, it just turns into this cross-hatching pattern with a grey shape outside. So option C, I believe, is going to be the answer there. Question 94. This one just rotates 90 degrees anti-clockwise and then becomes larger. So if we rotate this 90 degrees anti-clockwise, you should have the black on the top left and the bottom right, meaning option A is our answer here. Sorry, not option A actually, because what happens is if you look at this, it rotates 90 degrees and then it swaps. So usually if you rotate it at 90 degrees, the black shapes would be in here, but it actually swaps, so it should get swapped. So the black shapes should be actually left and right, which leaves us with option B as our answer. Question 95. So this is, to me it looks like the outer shape just gets removed and the inner shape gets rotated 180 degrees and then the line inside gets removed. So if we remove this outer shape, rotate the inner shape, so the pentagon should be facing downwards like this, but yeah, not any of these, but also have to remove the line, so that should actually leave us with option D as our answer. Okay, verbal reasoning now. Find the missing word. So question 96. The entire school attended morning assembly. So if you look at this, what word can we put into here to make it into an actual word? So I think this should say attended, and if we put the word so if you look over here, if we put in the word end into here, right, so it looks like there's a mistake here. This should have a it doesn't seem to work, but yeah, so you'll have to skip that question. End, basically it would either be end, yeah, it should say attended though, so we'll fix that for next time, so skip that question for now. Okay, question 97. So the burglar was something climbing over the fence. So if we put in pot here, we should get spotted. For this one there is an in. If we put fin in here, we'll get infinite number of stars in the sky. For this one, if we put in leg, we'll get college in London. And for this one, if we put deposited, so that if we put in sit right there, and then we'll get deposited his wages into the bank. So remember, these are the answers here: fin, pot. Okay, optional questions now. So how do you spell necessary? This is necessary. And this is temperature. And nuisance. Oh, sorry, nuisance. That's how you spell it. So criticize, spell like that. Muscle and marvelous. Okay, so we write the sentences putting the capital letters, putting them in. So you should have a capital on the T. I'm just actually just going to circle in capital here. This is a place, so these both should have capital letters. This is a film, so that should have a capital because that's a proper noun as well. This is before a full stop, so that should have a capital name. So River Indus should both be capitalized. And again, this is another place, so that should be capitalized. This is a book, so it should be capitalized, proper noun. I should always be capitalized. And then start of a sentence, capitalized. Same with these. Places, and again another place, so these should all be capitalized. Okay, so write has or have. So it's have you heard the orders he has given us? Has she seen the present you have bought? A weightlifter has to have very strong arms. You can see up here, because we've got any plural has to be have, and this is for singular. So I have a funny joke to tell you. Now with this one, whenever you have I, you always have to use have. So if you said she has a funny joke, then it would be she, right? So that joke has, singular, to be the worst I have ever heard. So anything with I, again, has to be have. Okay, I'm going to leave these ones out because the answers are on the website. I think they should be simple enough. But with the NVR, these can sometimes require explanations. Now, these ones have explanations actually on the website as well. We'll read them out though. So for this one, basically the fill is reversed. So that means basically the right and the left are swapped, like the patterns in there, and the shape is turned bigger, meaning option E is the right answer. For this one, basically the shape is turned upside down, so 180 degrees rotated. So if you rotate this 180 degrees, it's more of a reflection, I believe. So if you reflect it, you should get something like this. Sorry, like that. So if you cancel all of these out, you're actually left with option D as your answer. And as it sort of shows here, you also get a smaller version of the shape inside the shape. Yeah. So for the next question here, it's rotated 90 degrees and then the lines outside are turned dashed. So if you rotate this 90 degrees, you should have the arrows that are pointing towards the left, and the lines are turned dashed, meaning option C is the right answer. For this one, the inside shape becomes, you get a cross-hatching, sort of lined, and you get an outside shape which is bigger. So you should have an inside shape which has crosses, so it can't be any of these. Outside shape that is bigger, and you can see the outside shape also becomes dashed. So it shouldn't be a straight lined outside shape, so it shouldn't be B, it should be A. Next question here. So this shape seems to get moved to the top, and then this shape is actually just reflected, so this is a reflection of that horizontal reflection, if you think about it, reflecting across this line. So if you reflect this, should be pointing down, the triangle, and then the heart should be at the top, so it can't be D. You're left with B. Okay, so for find the missing word here, again the answers are here, but the lookout scanned for the horizon. This is rob. If you put rob in here, throbbed with pain. This is ant. So if you put an ant right here, you get fantastic. If you get pen, you put that right here, you get sharpened. Got, if you put got here, you get forgotten, and if you put bid right here, you get forbidden, and then accurately, so 8, you put that right here, you get accurately. So it's all about figuring out first of all what word this might be, and then figuring out what the 3 letters are that I'm missing. There's the end of homework 5 though, hopefully that was useful.